Welcome to J is for Justice podcast. If live breaking news and following true crime is your thing, then please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you like what you see in my videos, please consider giving them a thumbs up.
Hey all, welcome back to J is for Justice. My name is Jay and I am your host this evening. Welcome back to my channel. We have some breaking news. What are you guys thinking about this plea deal? So we're going to go over everything that is known at this point. We have Xana Kernodle's family is speaking out. The Goncalves family is speaking out. We haven't heard anything from Ethan's family or Maddie's. However, we do have a lot to go over, so we are going to get right into it because at 9 o'clock, we're going to be in our Discord watching Nate Eaton's interview with Lori Vallow. I think it's a 40-minute unedited video or interview that he did rather with Lori. So we're going to be in Discord watching that. When I first heard about this today, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? Why would they offer him a plea deal if they had such a strong case? Well, I did just read that the defense is the one that approached the prosecution about said plea deal. So I'm wondering when this transpired, because you can see on the screen, I have pulled up the latest filing in this case. And the latest filing was filed today. Or I'm sorry, on 6/27, not today. It was filed on Friday, and this is a filing sealing the jury, the objections from the defense on the jury questionnaire. So they were still making their objections and filing those as of Friday. So I'm wondering when the defense approached the prosecution with the plea deal, and how long it took them to get it all together that it came out today. Does that make sense? So that was confusing to me because here we have one filed today, actually. I misspoke. Look, 6:30. Order sealing the second notice of filing defendant's additions objection to the juror questionnaire. So this is the judge sealing it today. They filed it on Friday, though. So pretty wild. That's like the only reason we know is because they sent an email to the families. Go Thompson. Way to go. I think that's pretty shitty. So here's the Goncalves family Facebook page. And it says, it's true. We are beyond furious at the state of Idaho. They have failed us. Please give us some time. This was very unexpected. We appreciate all your love and support. And then we have some comments. Wait, I thought the DA asked the family if they're okay with the plea deal. You can speak to the court and express your disagreement with the plea. The judge doesn't have to accept the plea. But then I'm thinking about it, and then it's like, okay, they're saying they dropped the ball. So then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, but he's admitting he fucking did it. Buddha girl, thank you for your support. No, they were not consulted. From what I'm understanding right now, they were not consulted. So it sounds like they got an email today and they were completely thrown. Okay. So now we go to this, and this is just coming out of TMZ just not too long ago. Less than an hour ago. The family of Xana Kernodle is livid over the plea deal offered to accused murderer Bryan Kohberger. And they told prosecutors they had better not dare go through with it. You see this? When do prosecutors not speak to victims' families? I am completely and utterly shook that, hey, K. Miller, that Thompson wouldn't talk to these families. So it says Kim Kernodle, which is Xana's aunt, who was so furious she was in tears, told TMZ prosecutors floated the idea of a plea deal a few days ago. See this? Prosecutors floated the idea of a plea deal a few days ago, and the family made it clear, no way. Thank you, Buddha Girl, for 9 months. Sophia for 10 months. They were blindsided, clear, and simple. Does this violate I don't know what the victims' rights are in Idaho. We spoke with Kim, who was on a conference call with prosecutors. They did a conference call. She says prosecutors told her the defense approached prosecutors with a plea deal and that prosecution went along to, quote, spare the families the pain of a trial. Kim says that's ridiculous because at least two of the families, hers and the Goncalves family, wanted Kohberger to face a jury. Kim says prosecutors were especially concerned that the families would have to see gruesome crime scene photos of their loved ones. They could leave the courtroom for that. And they don't usually show all of those to the gallery anyways. So why would the prosecution use that as an excuse? We know the graphics, she said. They were not trying to spare us. Kim also says when her family got a call from prosecutors a few days ago about a deal, they were vague. Prosecutors never mentioned taking the death penalty off the table. What's especially puzzling, Kim says prosecutors told her there was enough evidence to secure a guilty verdict. As we reported under the deal, Kohberger will plead guilty to 4 counts of murder, and in return, prosecutors will take the death penalty off the table. Prosecutors will recommend life in prison without the possibility of parole. A hearing is scheduled for Wednesday, and presumably that's when prosecutors and Kohberger will ask the judge to approve the plea deal. Kim says she wants the judge to delay making a decision so the families can figure out their next move. So it says here, Xana Kernodle's family furious, will fight Kohberger plea. So I'm not sure, man. I am actually shocked, and like, Thompson's going to retire after this. This is his last case. Flo says, I don't believe in Idaho he would have gotten the death penalty just like Daybell. See, I'm kind of relieved that he's at least saying he did it. I'm kind of relieved that he's at least saying he did it. I don't know how I feel about all of the victims' family stuff. I think that falls on the prosecutor and his lack of communication with the victims. You know? So where do we think it will go from here? Where do we think this will go? So we have a hearing on Wednesday. Let's talk this out. We have a hearing on Wednesday where they're going to go over the guilty pleas of 4 first-degree counts of murder, right? So it brings me back to, I think it was in 2023, we discussed the parallels between Bryan Kohberger and the BTK killer. Now, BTK showed up for his first day of trial and pled guilty. He shocked everybody by doing that. Hey, Vince. And there's a lot of parallels here with Bryan Kohberger, BTK, Ted Bundy. I know we've talked about a lot of these, parallels. Hey, Jammers. But could he be following in the suit of the BTK killer? Because BTK stood up and he told everything. This is what I did. This is what the victims did, etc., etc. So I've had a feeling about this because BTK, right? He waited till the last minute. I mean, it's July 1st tomorrow. What, jury selections? 2 weeks? And I hope that's in that agreement too, Flo. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Flo says, please court, don't allow him to make money. Hey, Callie. He was waiting to see what all was going to be on the table. Yep. And then we just had last week, I believe, the hearing about the alternate perpetrators. So maybe that didn't pan out so well either, right? Yes. Wasn't he infatuated? Hi, Ryan. Wasn't he infatuated with BTK? Right. So we have Catherine Ramslin, who studied BTK, met with him in person, wrote books about him. We have Bryan Kohberger, who was taught by Catherine Ramslin. And now we have this. I heard Nancy Grace say his mom was begging him not to take a plea. Well, right, because he's giving up all appeals with his plea. What does that mean, Ryan? Ava says, I think he was infatuated with more than one serial killer. So that's what I wanted to kind of go over was my old video. Right here. How is Bryan Kohberger... What was my title? How is Bryan Kohberger like BTK? Let me count the ways. And then we have a lady speaking in this video about how she met up with BTK and survived. Right? She went on a date with him like Bryan Kohberger went on the date with the girl from Tinder. So we're going to revisit this. Was it Gacy Butter who said, was anybody else arrested? This is like a whole hodgepodge of, I think, different killers and methods and things that worked for them and things that didn't, trying to get away with the perfect murder, if you will. I don't grasp the motive here. I don't either. To commit the perfect murder and get away with it so he could be the smartest one. I don't know. I don't know what was going on in his mind. Hopefully they will unseal all the discovery after sentencing and we can dig through it and try to piece together what the freak happened, right? Thank you, Beans, for 23 months. Amazing community, intelligence, and integrity. Matt. Thank you for being here for 23 months, though. I wonder if Stephen Stearns will do the same. We'll see. The prosecution has to agree. Like, they can go to, and say, hey, he's interested in cutting a deal. But the prosecutor can say, no, fuck y'all. It could be revenge. It could be jealousy. It could be rage. It could be a lot of things. I want to know if he was Papa Rogers and inside looking. Me too, FUBJ. All right, so let's revisit this video and see what comes out of it that we pulled from 2023 to see if this will possibly happen on Wednesday or at a future hearing. Enjoy.
I know for a fact they locked their doors. So by all means, they did everything right.
Correct.
There was a keypad on their front door. I will say, due to the closeness of the community and due to the safeness of it, I think a lot of people had access to that door.
In today's live, we're going to be talking about
Dennis Rader.
Same with Catherine. They got out of hand.
All right, now you indicated that you believe you had Kevin tie Catherine. Tell me what happened.
Yeah, I would love to do a call-in, except we have Lori in just over an hour. I don't know if we're going to be able to fit it in, but maybe we can do a call-in show tomorrow and just let everybody call in and talk about this, because there's so much to cover. Maybe we can cover this tonight and then tomorrow have like an open discussion.
Okay. I moved, after, I really can't remember, Judge, whether I had her tie him up or she tied him up. But anyway, I moved, kind of tied her in the other bedroom, and I came back to strangle him. And at that time, we had a fight.
The killer attacked Maddie first, then moved on to Kaylee.
There's evidence to show that she awakened and tried to get out of that situation.
Yeah,
They
live
say she cried out.
event.
Her wounds show she fought for her life.
The way the bed was set up is
She
what
was trapped.
she was trapped.
Xana.
You could see the blood, and as far as I was concerned, I thought he was down and was out, and then went and started to strangle Catherine. And then we started fighting because the bonds weren't very good, and so back and forth we fought. Yeah, we fought. And I got the best of her, and I thought she was going down, and then I could hear some movement in the other room. So I went back, and Kevin, no, I thought she was going down, and I went back to the other bedroom where Kevin was at, and I tried to re-strangle him at that time, and he jumped up, and we fought.
Xana also fought back. According to her father, she had severe defensive wounds.
She went down fighting.
I believe so. It's upsetting to think about.
She was always a very strong person.
Hey, everybody.
And at that point in time, I've been fighting her, and then I heard some, I don't know whether I was basically losing control. The strangulation wasn't working on her, and I used a knife on her.
You say you used a knife on her.
Yes.
What did you do with the knife?
I stabbed her. She said either stabbed 2 or 3 times, either here or here. Maybe 2 back here and 1 here, or maybe just 2 times back here.
You were pointing to your lower back and your
Yeah, underneath the ribs.
and your lower
And all
abdomen.
of a sudden, the front door of the house was open, and he was gone. And I tell you what I thought. I thought the police were coming at that time. I heard the door open. I thought, no, that's it. And I stepped out there, and I could see him running down the street. So I quickly cleaned up everything that I could and left.
All right, no.
On one of Nancy Grace's recent podcasts, she interviewed a woman who previously met Dennis Rader and was stalked by him, allegedly.
Dennis Rader. That's right.
Hey, women.
This woman met up with him for a date of sorts. She got a sixth sense just before they left alone, and she lived to tell the story.
Kohberger was arrested. This woman couldn't believe her eyes.
I recognized him immediately and my heart just sank because I couldn't believe that, like, I was face to face with this guy.
Nurse Haley Willett says they met on Tinder in 2015 when they were both psych majors at Pennsylvania colleges. He took her to a movie, then insisted on escorting her to her dorm room.
I was kind of afraid to say no, so I just let him come in with me.
Then he did something she says she'll never forget.
He kept trying to tickle me, and I would ask him to stop, or I'd say, "What are you doing?" And he would be like, I'm not tickling you," and he would get very serious.
Creeped out by Kohberger, she came up with a clever ruse.
I proceeded to pretend to throw up in the bathroom, hoping that, it would gross him out.
But watch out, BTK, because some jurisdictions still have the death penalty. Talking about old Sparky, the needle.
Yep, she's going to be pissed. Oh, there she is. Look at, there she is. There's old Ramsland.
It was February of 1974, and my coworkers, we were nurses at a local hospital, and after our evening shift, we would go to this disco bar just to chill out before we went home to call it a day. And it was a Saturday night, and one of my coworkers and I, we had the evening off, the weekend off, so we decided we would go to this disco bar that was connected to a hotel. And I'm sitting there with her, and she goes out to dance, leaving me sitting alone. And this man that I had watched, he was pacing back and forth. He wore a maroon suit and had on white shoes. He came over to ask me to dance, and it was a slow dance. And he talked to me, and he asked me what my name was and told me, "Tell me about yourself," which I did.
Did she have wide birthing hips?
I just told him that, my age, and that I was just recently divorced and where I worked. And then I said, "Well, tell me about yourself. What is your name?" And he said, "Bob White."
Bob White.
And he's trying to explain to me why he has white shoes on. He said he wore white shoes, had them on because he lived in California, and the people in California wore white shoes all year round. And then the dance, well, first of all, I said, "Well, what kind of business are you here in Wichita on?" He said one word to me. He said McConnell, and that's an Air Force base here.
Hey, Mel.
He escorts me back to my chair after the dance, and in a little bit he comes over. He tells me he has to leave, but that he would like to see me again. And against my better
he's
judgment,
so
I've
gross.
never been taught to do this, I gave him my phone number.
Go ahead, Mel.
So, and he told me he would call me on a Tuesday. That was the day I had to return to work, evening shift. He calls me, and we agreed to meet at a restaurant. This restaurant was in a mall, a very popular mall, just down the street from the hospital.
Hey,
he
Global.
tells me he might be a little late, but I arrived at around 1 p.m. And when I go in, I'm expecting to be there first because he told me he might be late. Well, when I walked in there, he was standing there waiting for me, and he was totally different. He did not even look like the same man. He was dressed in what I would call work clothes that someone would be working out in the cold. He had a hat on that had ear flaps to protect the ears. He had like a heavy jacket. He had gloves on. He had I believe, khaki pants and boots. And he had a bag with him that looked out of place.
A kill kit.
And I looked at
His
it,
kill
and he
kit.
told me that it had his books in it. And I said, well, I thought you had said you might be late. And he said, yes, I had to take a bus all the way down Hillside from WSU.
Guys,
don't you guys remember though when Steve said when she broke up with Jack, she went on a date with a guy and he was a total asshole to her. Remember, he said something like, "Get me something, bitch," and she was like, Jack has never even called me that, like ever called me a name, and this is the first date and this guy's calling me this name. Who was that guy? Who was that guy? And Mal, to answer your question, good question. I didn't know they were on People. Holy crap. So Hunter and Emily were also on Good Morning America today. We're going to go over that as well. But the timing, I think, is because the docuseries for Amazon is coming out on the 11th, which I'm really surprised that the victims are speaking out prior to trial. But I think it's the timing is the documentary. You guys have to remember though, when he was like in a regular attire, he didn't look that weird in some of his pictures. How do you know she didn't meet him on an online site and go on a date with him? I mean, why is it so far-fetched? She broke up with her boyfriend. And the guy was rude to her and calling her a bitch. I don't know. I don't think it's that far-fetched. I really don't. And maybe he sought her out to go on a date because he was interested in one of her friends. I don't know. I just think if you saw him and you didn't know who he was or what he did, he wouldn't look so creepy. I don't know. Some of the pictures of him, he doesn't look like a mass murderer, you know? Like his one student ID, he just looks like a normal guy. She was shocked at being treated that way, yes. And it seems like for someone to treat her that bad and then for this to happen, I don't know, it's possible. I mean, he was a PhD student. He was, for all intents and purposes, successful, according to his resume.
He says he takes a bus all the way down from WSU. What
is
in your
WSU?
area
This is
WSU?
BTK.
It's Wichita State University, and Hillside is a very popular street, well-traveled.
So he took a bus, he says, from Hillside to meet you at the mall. What mall?
You don't have to carry on a conversation and be a good conversationalist to get a date online. You don't. People that date online, like these kids now, they don't get on the phone and have conversations. They're texting. They're messaging on the app. You can't get, yeah. And then when she met the guy, he called her a bitch and was like a dick. So I don't know. We'll see.
What was it?
Harry Street Mall. It's just east of St. Joseph Hospital.
Okay. So you're at lunch. What happens?
We go to sit down, and by then I'm becoming really nervous because it wasn't like I had remembered him at all. I even thought, do I have the right man? But he seemed to recognize me. So we sit down, and he starts some conversation about a parochial school and tells me he hated them because he was once in an orphanage.
Like I was face to face with this guy.
Nurse Haley Willett says they met on Tinder in 2015 when they were both psych majors at Pennsylvania colleges. He took her to a movie, then insisted on escorting her.
Okay, he got a date with this girl. She's pretty. She's very, very pretty. Bryan Kohberger scored a date with this girl. I don't think it was the initial that was the problem for him. I think it was the actual in-person communication that was not working. I think once he got in the realm, he couldn't, you know what I mean? That's when they got the creep vibes. But no, I mean, Kaylee wouldn't not go on it. I don't believe that. It's not like Jack is some, like, Mr. Universe. I mean, her boyfriend Jack wasn't even that cute. Looks wise.
Dorm room.
I was kind of afraid to say no, so I just let him come in with me, trying to tickle me. And I would ask him to stop, or I'd say, "What are you doing?" And he would be like, I'm not tickling you. And he would get very serious.
Creeped out by Kohberger.
I proceeded to pretend to throw up in the bathroom, hoping that, it would gross him out and he would leave. He had messaged me on Tinder and said that he was leaving and that he had a good time and that he would message me later. And then about an hour later, he messaged me and he said that I had good birthing hips, and I just never messaged him back after that.
And then it leads on into, he asked me, he said, "Who do you live with?" And he wanted specifically who I live with. I told him my mother, my dad.
Wow, how creepy. BTK wanted to know who she lived with. So did Bryan go on a date with Kaylee and ask who she lived with? I don't know. How did he find out about the King Road house? That's the question. How did he even know about the house? Did he know about the people, or did he know about the house? Which came first? Right?
My 2 children and my brother. He said, "Is there ever any time that you're alone?"
I agree,
and
Callie.
I said, "No, people are around me all the time."
And look at, there's Kaylee's last post. Such a lucky girl to be surrounded by these people every day, which wasn't true because she didn't live there anymore. She wasn't surrounded by them every day.
So we have a little bit more conversation, and then he said, "Do you know of a place that we can be alone?" He said, "Because I do these things, or we are going to be doing some things that no one can see, hear, or know about." And I insisted I didn't know of any place. Then we go on into the conversation. He tells me that he does photography and that he uses a Polaroid, and that he often did some of these things at his parents' house. He never mentioned California again. And then...
Where did he indicate his parents were?
He didn't indicate. I just assumed California, but, now I know his parents were in Wichita. And his parents lived in Wichita, around Seneca Street.
Mm-hmm.
So
true potato.
Then we changed the conversation. It gets it's hard to have conversation with him. And I realized I was too afraid to leave. I just sat there. I think.
What do you mean by that? You were too afraid to leave?
I was afraid that if I tried to leave, he would follow me and maybe get me alone. I was really afraid. So I thought, you're going to have to sit here until it's time for you to go to work. So I thought, I've got a lot of conversation to try to make with him. So there was pauses, and suddenly he appears very upset, and he says to me, "I have a problem with this city." And I'm thinking, well, you're from California. And I said, well, what kind of problem? And he said, city politics. And me, I was just trying to make conversation about things in Wichita. And I said, did you hear about that family that was murdered a few weeks ago? And he says, yeah, they found a boot print in the snow outside the window. And then he said, and yeah, the detective sure had a mess to clean up.
Oh.
And I said,
wow, that's what BTK said to her. Oh, the detective sure had a mess to clean up, and that there was a boot mark outside the window in the snow. Nancy is talking to a woman who went on a date with BTK, and we're kind of comparing it with the woman who went on a date with Bryan Kohberger off Tinder.
oh, I said, well, how would you know that? I said, do you work with law enforcement? And he said, no. And I said, well, how did you know that then? And he said, the chief of security at WSU. And so we talk about a few more things, and suddenly he gets angry or looks angry with me.
My daughter broke up with him.
This is it.
And within a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, she had an interaction with a date. And he said, call me a bitch. And she was like, I've been with one boy my whole life.
And I said, he's never called you. And she's like, never, Mom. And I said, really? And she goes, never. And he said, bitch, you could go make me a quesadilla. And she said, what did you say? And she said, I'm leaving. And she goes, and I left. And I went home like, oh, Jack.
See? Is this why? Is this why he wanted to blame Jack? Did he have a hatred for Jack? Let me go back.
Know that then. And he said, the chief of security at WSU.
He said a week and a half after breaking up with Jack. I don't know when she broke up with Jack.
And so we talk about a few more things, and suddenly he gets angry or looks angry with me.
My daughter broke up with him, and within a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, she had an interaction with a date. And she said, call me a bitch. And she was like, I've been with one boy my whole life.
And I said, he's never called you. And she's like, never, Mom. And I said, really? And she goes, never. And he said, bitch, you could go make me a quesadilla. And she said, what did you say? And she said, I'm leaving. And she goes, and I left. And I went home like, oh, Jack.
And she's like, I might not ever find another Jack.
And I'm like, you might not. Like, there's just parts of Kaylee was leaving.
Kaylee was looking for every excuse for him to pick the phone up.
Yes.
To read those texts.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
they broke up 3 weeks before the murders? I did not know that. So a week and a half after breaking up. So that would mean a week and a half before the murders, she went on a date. That would put that at a week and a half before the murders.
I will leave tonight with the dog if you don't pick up. That type of thing.
Oh, so yeah. And they, even when they broke up, they still communicated.
Yes,
it
every
sounds
day,
like
all the
it's
time.
like
The whole time she
in
was
that
home.
bar scene,
it was just a.
they were around him.
Yeah.
Not
They were-
this Jack so over here. In the corner. No, she was around her ex, and to me, that's
Sorry, I was muted. So here's the corner club footage again. You see the girls talking to Jack over here. And then you see this interaction going on by the door. And I think that's Bryan Kohberger on that stool. I know a lot of people said that's Adam, the bartender, but I don't think a bartender is going to be sitting in the corner. He's going to be behind the bar. I think that's Bryan Kohberger right there. I don't know why. I just do. I still do.
they were around him. Not
Maybe I slowed it down when I made the video. I don't know. They're not drunk, though.
in that bar scene.
It was just a.
They were around him. Not
They were-
this Jack so over here in the corner. No, she was around her ex.
Do you see that? She was around him, not this something in the corner. I think that was Bryan. Listen.
In that bar scene.
It was just a.
They were around him.
Yeah.
Not this Jack so over here in the corner. No.
See? I slowed it down so we could understand him. Yeah, they wouldn't have a doorman there when the bar's closing, though. This was closing time. The bartender's going to be cleaning the bar, getting ready to close down. At closing time, bartenders are super busy. They're definitely not sitting on a stool at closing time. Definitely.
It was just
They were around him.
Yeah.
Not this Jackson over here in the corner. No, she was around her ex, you know, and to me, that's comfort level. That's body.
The one in the corner, sitting down, being confronted by this guy walking in with his hand in his pocket. He's being confronted by, I think this is the owner of the club, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure it's ever been confirmed what Adam did that night or not. I don't know how we would ever know that because the bar wasn't giving any information and neither was Adam. But when you look at this picture, which we've studied it extensively in the past, if you look at this person, which this is a blurry version, I don't think that that's Adam. It doesn't look like Adam. Damn it. Sorry. It doesn't look like Adam to me. That looks like Bryan Kohberger, and he looks nervous, and he looks like he's being confronted about something. Maybe even being asked to leave. But that's just my speculation. I'm not saying that is fact. That's just what I think. That's what I believe. I think he was everywhere. I think he was everywhere. And you know what? Even if that was him, and let's say they did go on a date, and he was sitting there, they wouldn't think, oh, this guy's going to murder me. I mean, no one thinks that. No one thinks, oh, I'm going to go home and this guy's going to come in my house when I'm sleeping and murder me. I don't know.
Over here in the corner. No, she was around her ex, you know, and to me, that's comfort level. That's body language. This is the person that I'm comfortable with.
Talked to him about the conversation that night. We talked to the other guy about the conversation that went on that night, and they both, you know, they were just like, hey, what's been up? Boy, how you been doing? You know, what's been going on? And she was trying to talk him into going to another bar down the street or something like that. And he's like, I worked all day. I'm tired. I'm going home. And he left and went home. And, you know, we think things could have been different. You know?
And he said, you find a place, because I do these things and I take pictures and record while I'm doing them. And then he indicates that the bag he had with him that was sitting on the floor in the restaurant, he says, I have my things, my equipment in this bag.
He was there to kill.
He came in with a kit. I believe he had a kill kit. And you...
All planned.
It was inhumane. You wouldn't do these type of things to any living creature, let alone an innocent human being.
And I'm sitting there, you know, just frightened and thinking, how am I going to get out of here? And so we have some more conversation, and he asked me if he said he had to go to Hellsberg's, which was a jewelry store in the mall, to visit her friend. And he called her by name and said, do you know her? And I said, no, I didn't know her. And finally, I have to leave. I'm almost late for work, and I jumped up real abruptly. I think I ran out of the restaurant. I don't know if the coffee was even paid for. But I start on my way to the car, and he follows me. And I looked up, put my hand up, like, stop. I said, I'm going to be late for work.
Okay, remember this? The Moscow Police Department revealed that investigators identified an incident at a local business in mid-October, quote, which may have been the stalker reference Goncalves made to friends and family, end quote. 2 men were seen inside the unnamed business, and as they parted ways, one of them appeared to follow Goncalves after she left to go to her car. But, quote, the male turned away, and it does not appear he made any contact with her, end quote. Police said in a Monday news release. Detectives contacted both men, who told them they were trying to meet women at the business. Their story was corroborated through further probing, police said. Could they have talked to Bryan Kohberger at some point? I don't know, y'all. I mean, we just don't know. But there was something definitely that went on with Kaylee. Definitely. We have a date a week and a half before. We have the stalker reference in mid-October. Something was going on. In my opinion.
And he said, well, I'll call you on Thursday. And I thought, okay, I've got to come up with an excuse before then. Then he tells me he's going back into the mall to go visit his friend at Hellsburg's. So I go on to work, and 2 days later, it's Valentine's Day. I remember that specifically. It was my first Valentine's after my husband left me. And when he calls me at 1 o'clock, I promptly tell him, I can't see you again. I am taking my husband back. My kids really need him. And sarcastically, he says this poem to me. It's something about little lady in a shoe locking up and tying up my kids. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? What is that supposed to mean? And he said, well, you know, little lady can't handle her kids, so she has to take hubby back. And shortly after that, I said, well, I have to go. And he said, oh, Gina. And I said, yes. And he said, roses are red, peonies are pink. I cannot remember the third line, but the fourth line was, I'll sure be blue without you. And we hung up. And
weird.
I thought about this man, but I always pictured him being back in California. And when something would happen in Wichita, I would think of him, but think, oh no, he's in California. Well, then things around a few years, well, let me take this back. 2 years from that date, and I don't know who this was, but my husband and I had taken him back. We went to a Valentine party at a sorority. And my babysitter, her parents were going to be at the same party, and they asked me if my babysitter could spend the night with us because they were going to be out really late. I said that would be fine. Well, we went to the party. When I come back, we walk in the door. I meet the babysitter. There's tears in her eyes. Her lip is trembling. She said, there's been a man calling for you all evening long, keeps asking for you. And she said, I looked out the window and there was a man standing in your yard. And I don't know if I just had a false sense of security. I can't remember, but I knew my husband was there and that things would probably be okay. We didn't see anything unusual when we pulled in the drive.
Kaylee had a stalker, if that was really true.
I said this, she's a pretty girl, her friends are really pretty, so them attracting attention was pretty common wherever they went. So I think she attracted attention, whether that's a dedicated person following her around, maybe not. I do believe that the officers looked in it, and I believe what they said, that there was no evidence there.
Falling apart a little bit and, really looking at specific events that have been strange or maybe should have been looked into more in our eyes.
So we all go to bed. My babysitter's sleeping on the couch. My children are sleeping in their rooms. And about 2:15, 2:30, I wake up and I hear a car pulling in the drive. You can hear there's crackling from ice on the driveway. And I nudged my husband. I said, there's someone here. Let me get it, because I didn't want anyone to persuade anyone that they needed inside the house. So I go down the hallway and he's banging on the front door. And I said, who is it? And they wouldn't use any words. I said, who is it? What do you want? And they're just pounding on the door. But they're making a growling type sound. like
Hey,
they
dandy.
were angry. And then when he couldn't get in the door, he reaches over to my living room window and is trying to get in that. And then he goes over to my little girl's room and tries to get in there.
Did you see his face?
No, I didn't. But my little girl said she saw the shadow of him, and it was a man. She said there must have been a moon.
Mickey, I
full
agree.
moon, because she said I could see his shadow, and he was trying to get into my bedroom.
Funk. So let's review some of the things that we have seen and have been leaked into the media, because when you piece them together, they tell a little bit of a story. So here's the first article. It was Funk who found the bloodied bodies of her 3 housemates, and she has argued she should not have to appear because she now lives in Nevada, not Idaho. That was what stuck out to me. And through her lawyers, she slapped down the foreign subpoena and said a judge must have a hearing before Funk can be required to testify. And then if you go down, it says one of the survivors allegedly heard a commotion and witnessed a masked man exit through a rear sliding door, according to a police affidavit. The second survivor, in this case, Funk, is alleged to have heard or saw things that could clear the suspect, according to Batanti's affidavit. Batanti argues that the information Funk possesses is unique to her experience and cannot be provided by another witness. The next one, and these are all from mainstream media sources. Investigator Richard Batanti, who is working for Ann Taylor, Mr. Kohberger's lawyer, has subpoenaed Miss Funk to appear at the accused killer's hearing on June 28th. Now, the hearing's going from June 26th until June 30th. That is what they have slotted, and they have her wanting to come on the second day. So what is that? I don't know why. Why wouldn't they want her there on the first day if she has something that could exonerate Mr. Kohberger? But more importantly, according to the affidavit, she allegedly witnessed a naked man run through a rear sliding door. She lived on the first floor of the home and came face to face with the alleged What happened to killer. that?
So this is what has been leaked about the affidavit that Richard Batanti put out.
And she said, I was trying to tell you, but you were already down the hall. And so,
what month would this have been, Gina?
It's February of around 12th through the 14th, because we've been to a Valentine party, and it was in 1976. It was 2 years later,
2 years later.
To the date.
Got it.
Yeah, and so I'm standing there just frozen.
She told police she was in a frozen shock phase by what she saw.
She's another victim of this crime. I mean, this is a girl that's wasn't prepared to see what she's seen. My heart goes out to her.
Because by then, this person is at the front door, and he sounds like he's using tools to try to get in through the doorknob, like he's doing something to the doorknob. And I thought, oh my God, they're trying to get in here anyway. And about that time, my husband flies down the hall and he said, get the hell out of here. I have a gun. And that person flew off the porch and must have backed out of the drive. I don't even think I heard the car go. And I did call the police and tell them what had happened. And they said, do you want us to come out? And I said, oh, I guess it's not necessary. They're gone now. So that's pretty much, there were some other things that happened in between there, things that I thought must be my imagination. But
well, like what?
When I would come home from work, sometimes it would seem like someone had been in my house.
Oh, shit. Oh, this was before we found out about the Asian girl. It would seem like someone had been in my house. Remember the Asian girl he shared the office with at WSU? And her cake was in the microwave and all her cosmetics were laid out on the damn freaking toilet? Another parallel. right there.
When I would come home from work, sometimes it would seem like someone had been in my house.
And then I went and looked at the blotters, and I found these weird police blotter incidents.
Things just didn't seem right. And I have a necklace that's missing that it's not an expensive necklace, but it had been given to me for a Christmas present. And I thought I might have some articles of clothing missing. And at that point, some point, I had a driver's license missing, but my purse, I always kept my driver's license.
Her driver's license is missing. Remember the driver's licenses that Bryan Kohberger had? The IDs he had? The watch taken from the Asian lady? Yep.
It's in my purse, and I never was without it. So I don't know how anyone would have got access to my driver's license. But
I don't know if we got like her like.
Here we go.
Like wallet.
Right here.
Like.
We got things from her room. Her room really wasn't part of it.
I'm talking about like her wallet with her ID in it and her debit card. And
her bank records. The amount of.
See? It's all piecing together. You just have to pay attention. Yeah, I'm doing the Nate interview in Discord at 9. Johnny Cuddy, that we're comparing BTK and Bryan Kohberger. The older lady that's talking to Nancy Grace is a woman that went on a date with BTK. And then we heard from a woman that went on a date with Bryan Kohberger, and we're comparing the similarities.
Wallet. Like.
We got things from her room.
I don't know how anyone.
Listen.
At some point, I had a driver's license missing, but my purse, I always kept my driver's license in my purse. And I never was without it. So I don't know how anyone would have got access to my driver's license. But
I don't know if we got like her wallet. Like.
We got things from her room. Her room really wasn't part of it.
I'm talking about like her wallet with her ID in it and her debit card. And
her bank records. The amount of records on Kay was probably. Yeah, we have those items.
We have her ID?
And she had so many IDs, it's hard to... She had a lot of college IDs, a lot of high school IDs, so I don't know if I actually
We all had a lot of IDs.
Did this happen?
This would have happened between probably 1974 and 1977. It sometime during that. It was probably, it just kept happening on and off. Someone was calling me on the phone, and they were playing that song, Lay Down Sally.
Oh, God.
Lay Down Sally. A lot. And then some man kept calling and just harassing me, and I kept saying, "You've got the wrong number. Quit calling."
Pranking her.
And I said, "There's no Sally here."
Pranking her and playing Lay Down Sally. How creepy. BTK.
And finally, I told him I was going to call the telephone company. At some point, and I don't remember when, I don't remember the time frames other than those dates that I gave you, but somewhere in between this window, some man knocked on my door. He said he was from the phone company and that they had noticed trouble on my line and that someone had tampered with my phone lines outside my house.
Here's another Moscow police blotter. Suspicious. What does this one say? There is a male that has shown up. There is a male that has shown up to reporting party's apartment multiple times saying that he works for Ziply. Officers responded, no report. Ziply is their internet service there in Moscow. Here's another one. Reporting party reporting a male that she believes is pretending to be a Ziply employee to get Social Security information. Here's another one. Reporting party reported people outside talking while everyone else is asleep, and that a white sedan sped away just prior to calling.
What is on it?
Her speaker. It's kind of unusual item not to give back. The laptops, multiple laptops, not just one. All electronics. It seems like they've kept of hers. So and her bake records, the amount of records on Kayla was probably, I think, fairly to say was more than the other victims.
I began to get suspicious around 1977 when the Wichita police started making information available, like Wichita had a serial killer, and this is what he was like, this is what he did. They said he said poems about his victims, and I thought, well, this man said poems to me. And then when BTK said, what shall I call myself? Shall I call myself the Hillside Strangler? Should I call myself the Poetic Strangler? Or should I call myself BTK? Well, I identified with that because he had said poems to me. This man had. He had said he had to take a bus all the way down WSU. And I began getting suspicious, but then I would say, no, that man's in California. Shortly
she didn't think he was there. Wow.
We moved to Arizona. But when I would come back for a visit, I would ask everyone, what do you think happened? And they said, well, we heard he's either in prison or he's dead, because it was just so silent. And then in Arizona, about maybe 30 years later, my daughter calls me. She's crying and she says, Mother, BTK's back. And I said, oh, no, honey. I said, that lawyer just made a book. And she says, no, he's back. So I get on the internet, I look, and sure enough, he has resurfaced. So they're asking for tips. So I call on a Saturday morning and I give my tips. I was sure I knew who they were looking for by then. But I couldn't give him a name because he told me his name was Bob White, which, you know, that's kind of a joke now. I fell for it.
Nice weight to it, says Mike. Daniel White, very nice. The box and the sheath, delicious. Oh, these are reviews of this delicious? These are reviews of the knife on Amazon. Oh, my God.
And so I was watching everything about their investigations. And when they found him, I was waiting on the pictures.
Thank you, Outer
Banks.
Banks.
I seen his pictures from what he looked like when I met him that day. That time frame. I seen his Latah County picture. That was him. I looked at some of his other pictures, and just a little tiny older version of him.
Kendo.
And then his later version. But I watched him on his court trial. He walks like him. He talks like him. He looks like him, just older.
Monster.
I can't think of any
that is a
reason why it
monster.
wouldn't be.
When you saw his picture of his younger self, did you know that was Bob White?
Absolutely.
Joining me right now is an all-star panel to make sense of what we have just heard from Gina Rodriguez. 100% certain that she met up on a date with BTK. Not meeting him once, but twice.
Be sure to check out my other... That's that. Pretty interesting, though, right? And then we have another one. Right here. Here. This is where we did a deep dive on this shit. Papa Rogers, talked about this yesterday, said Kohberger harassed women at his bar, where he usually sat alone. Observe. All right, so I'll give you guys the link to this one, too. This one's a deep dive on it. It is pretty wild, isn't it? Thank you, Outer Banks, again. I know a lot of people don't think that's Kohberger at the bar. Maybe I'll be proved wrong, but as it stands right now, I think that it's him. But I wanted to play something really quick for you guys before we end and go over to Discord. I wanted to play the interview with Hunter and Emily. What is this? A 40-minute video? Hold on.
Road to get to where we are today. Remember, the students were killed in November of 2022.
The defendant is not losing their own money, so they have maybe an increased incentive to go to trial. You often
That's a 40-minute video of just discussing this. Hang on. Let's go to Good Morning America. Right here.
Turn now to the Idaho College murders case. The trial date is now set. This morning, close friends of the victims are telling their story for the first time on GMA.
Pure innocence.
Here we go.
It was a morning that changed everything, and they're speaking out for the first time about what they want people to remember about their friends. It's not just about how they died, but about how they lived.
You see the world in pure innocence, and that all gets ripped away from you in one phone call. That's just the day that changed it all.
She was Xana's best
this morning,
friend.
For the first time, the best friends of Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle speaking out about that for the first time.
Look at Hunter there. This poor boy will never be the freaking same. He will never be the same. And I want people to leave him the fuck alone. Hey, NorCal. Hey, if you guys are not a member of the Discord and you want to join, we're going to watch Lori Vallow interview at 9 o'clock in about 20 minutes. Look at Hunter here, and then look at how he looks now. He is traumatized. That boy is traumatized.
The best friends of Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle speaking out about that November day when they discovered Ethan, Xana, Kaylee Goncalves, and Madison Mogan brutally murdered in an off-campus home.
I don't think anyone expects anything like that ever in their life to happen.
Hunter Johnson and his girlfriend Emily Allant.
And people say, oh, they're not a boyfriend and girlfriend anymore. They broke up, blah, blah, blah. They're clearly still an item. And he's clearly struggling.
Anything like that ever in their life to happen.
Hunter Johnson and his girlfriend Emily Allant now telling their story in a new Prime Video docuseries, One Night in Idaho, The College Murders.
We were a big group of friends. Why would you target those four?
Emily says she and Xana were inseparable.
We were attached at the hip probably the first day that we met. Yeah, we just clicked immediately. We were same personalities, I feel like.
I love it when people talk about Ethan and Xana sort of being like male and female versions of each other.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Who's that? UA? Is UA conducting this interview?
Talk about Ethan and Xana sort of being like male and female versions of each other.
Oh, it's very much true. They were the same person.
Hunter and Emily say the fall weekend started like any other with a big football game. The friends snapping this photo that Saturday.
It was a normal weekend for us, just hanging out with our friends.
The next morning, Emily says Dylan, one of the surviving roommates, called her concerned, asking her and Hunter to come over.
In the documentary, you tell the story of really not feeling alarmed when Dylan called you.
I joked around with her on the phone. It's something you would never expect.
It's November, so I had shorts.
So Emily says when Dylan called, she joked around. She didn't think it was anything serious. And you wouldn't.
Phone, it's something you would never expect.
It's November, so I had shorts on, slides on. Like, I wasn't prepared to obviously stay there. I was just going over to check, see what's going on. I would say as soon as you get there, you know something's wrong.
Hunter was the first person to arrive to King Road to discover what happened. Their friend Josie Louderin, who was also there, describing the moments in the docuseries.
As soon as I stepped in the house, I was like, oh, something is so not right. Like, you could feel it almost. Hunter was ahead of me and Emily and immediately was pushed out, and Hunter was like, get out, somebody call 911.
You hear Hunter on the 911 call telling the girls there was an unconscious person protecting them from the graphic details.
Is she breathing?
No.
How did you remain so calm in that moment?
Truly, in my heart, I believe God was with me that day, and he gave me the strength to get through that day.
As authorities entered the home, the friends say they were told to sit outside, waiting for hours with little information.
We watched the ambulance come and we watched them immediately leave. So I think that was a hard part for sure.
That's so sad. He was wearing shorts in November because he was in bed. They got him out of bed. They called him and they just woke up. Like he probably slept in shorts and put on slides and ran over there. He wasn't planning on hanging out.
That second you realize there's no one to be saved.
Right.
Their best friends
Sad.
inexplicably murdered. Not knowing who was responsible or why, they feared for their own safety.
We just left to get away, be safe.
Yeah.
Is our
You
mindset.
didn't feel safe?
No.
In the nearly 7 weeks it took police to arrest a suspect, Emily, Hunter, and surviving...
They'll never be the same, y'all. Never. This kid aged probably, you know what I mean? Like, that aged him 30 years emotionally. Like, it's so freaking sad.
Roommates Dylan and Bethany became the targets of online sleuths and social media attacks.
Lots of threats, people saying I should confess to murdering them. I felt like I was less than a person in that point in my life.
Hear that? Hear what you Kohbergers did to this kid? Do you hear what doing that does to somebody?
People saying I should confess
to killing your best friend and his girlfriend. Yeah, real nice fucking people.
Murdering them. I felt like I was less than a person in that point in my life.
On December 30th, 2022,
Sick.
police arrested then 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger. To Emily and Hunter, he was a complete stranger. Their murder trial set to begin in August.
To Emily and Hunter, he was a complete stranger. Doesn't mean he was a complete stranger to everybody, right?
His attorneys say he's innocent.
Does justice lie in a conviction?
And this just came out today. It's like weird.
I don't think there's gonna ever be any justice.
I mean, yeah, we can have justice for the conviction of it, but I don't get to still hang out with Ethan. So
They still don't get to.
they don't have
Be
a
with their
son. They don't
child.
have a daughter anymore.
They say they hope people remember who their friends were beyond the headlines.
Who they are as people is so much more than the Idaho 4, and they shouldn't be known as the Idaho 4, and they shouldn't be attached to, you know, the name of who did that to them. And
Did you see how her body language when she says, she's like pushing away, like, oof, she thought of Bryan Kohberger in that body language.
They shouldn't be known as the Idaho 4, and they shouldn't be
Watch.
attached to, you know, the
Like,
name
oof.
of who did that to them. And I just think that, you know, hopefully one day that they're just seen as who they are and not what happened to them.
Yeah, Emily went on to tell me they are so much more than their last day. Now, they joined Ethan's family to speak in this docuseries One Night in Idaho, The College Murders, which premieres July 11th on Prime Video.
And we'll be airing that on Kick so we can all watch it together as well. I don't even know if they were 20. I know Dylan was 19. Bethany was 19. I mean, these are really, 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 really young kids, you know. I agree, Misfit. It is sad. Yeah, he did, Stacy. But I think it's really important, though, to remember that Bryan Kohberger's defense team approached the prosecution for this. It wasn't the prosecution going to them saying, you know, will he take this plea deal because we don't have enough? That makes it so different. And I'm actually quite frankly, I'm glad that he's admitting that he did it. I'm glad that the plea deal will include no appeals. And if they add in that he can't make any money off of it, there we go. I mean, I think that's the best possible outcome. Chad Daybell didn't even get death penalty in Idaho for killing his wife. So Bryan Kohberger has a horrible, horrible life ahead of him in prison. I'm not mad about it. I'm really not mad about it. I was looking forward to seeing the trial play out, but I'm glad to hear that he's succumbed to, admitting that he finally did it. I mean, we go from, we've got alternate perpetrators to, hey, he wants to take a plea. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on Wednesday when we get a time for that hearing. I will let you guys know. And we will stream that live on Wednesday, and then we can do like a call-in show. All monies may go directly to what? Oh, about Walat Harris. Jay, I see you like talking about true crime. Me too. Well, why don't you email me, Walat? Oh, Lori didn't get the DP. Okay. I think she knew the whole time. That's a fact. She was just doing her job. They sealed the deal for the rest of his life, and we have admission. I agree. I don't know what else you could wish for. Well, Nate Eaton, if you don't have Discord, you can watch it right on East Idaho News, right here on YouTube at 9 p.m. And I'll see you guys on Discord in about 10 minutes. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, moderators, for sharing the Discord link and being here tonight. And I'll see you guys in just a few minutes. Until the next one, stay safe, and I'll see you. Let's run our credits. So much for watching. If you enjoyed this live stream or video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on my latest content. Want to take it a step further?
Bring it all in.
And join our community clickers by becoming a Patreon or a YouTube member. You'll get exclusive access to our Discord server, special channel perks, and much more. Until then, I'll see you in the next one.
Click. It's real easy, man.